Welcome back to the Coffee Hour. I'm Andy Bates.
I'm Sarah Golseth.
It is Teacher Appreciation Week, and by golly, if there's ever a year to appreciate teachers more, this has certainly been the year to show our gratitude and appreciation for teachers. And joining us today, Dr. Rebecca Schmidt. She's director for LCMS School Ministry. Becky, thanks so much for joining us on the Coffee Hour.
Andy and Sarah, it's my pleasure.
It has certainly been quite the year for Lutheran schools. They have adapted and persisted through all the challenges this year. And I remember last year doing, celebrating Teacher Appreciation Week, and every way that we showed appreciation for teachers had to happen virtually. This year, we've had the opportunity to actually meet in person. Students in our school have been able to meet in person. I know some schools have still had to meet virtually. Mm-hmm. How have Lutheran schools been able to adapt to all the changes and persist through the challenges of this past year?
Well, it definitely has been a huge challenge, and we have just great admiration for our teachers and Lutheran school leaders and school board leaders, community. It has been a community effort to move forward with in-person schools and to adapt to the situations where it's not possible to have in-person schools. It is a can-do spirit, not, oh, we can't do this, but how will we do it? And this is what has carried them through.
Do you have some stories from teachers, how they've risen to the challenge? I know we've seen a lot on social media of all of the things that teachers have done over the last year to keep kids involved and engaged. Do you have some stories that you can share with us?
Oh, absolutely. And when we think about school a year ago, it was primarily in the classroom, a lot of technology happening and being used in classrooms, and very successful curriculum development and programs in schools. And then the pandemic, when remote learning began, all of this changed and accelerated for teachers. And so what might have been not the focal point in the classroom, it became the vehicle for reaching children and families. And this is from preschool through grade 12. Remote learning developed. It was conducted in a number of ways with homeschool packets for students in younger grades, with Zoom classroom meetings, and all the many ways that teachers really reached out through technology to their families to stay connected.
And this is, I mean, it's certainly impacted how you interact with teachers, how you and your office interact with teachers and educators across the country and Lutheran school administrators. How has this impacted how has it shaped how you go about the work that you do in LCMS School Ministry?
Well, we actually mirrored many of the experiences that schools were having, and in terms of being deployed, of working with a team in 3 different locations, and really leveraging technology to continue to reach to those we serve. And we all have experienced the explosive use of Zoom meetings, and we operated with this in much the same way. And we found many of these new things that we hadn't really considered before the pandemic are really helpful. And from developing online meetings, online accreditation procedures, and many of these things were of great benefit and will stay with us.
And I've seen some of the benefits just in our school, in our own home too. Some of the things that we learned through this experience. And I know the teachers have just been working tirelessly from the very beginning of the pandemic, when all of the teachers in our Lutheran school, where my son attends, from trying to quickly figure out how to make up lesson packets to send home, and how to collaborate with families, from pre-K all the way up through 8th grade in our school, how to uh, help the students learn virtually and how to support parents. But now looking at the flip side, how do we support teachers as well? I'm sure that it's just been a challenging year. How to show appreciation for them, and many of them have just been doing it with a smile and pressing on. I know they've got to be exhausted at some point. How do we? What do we look for, and how do we care for these teachers during this time? I know that the end of the school year is coming, so there's hopefully some respite for many of them. But how do we care for these teachers who have been, just pressing on?
Andy, that's a huge concern and consideration for our teachers. Conducting school virtually is not easier, and it takes much preparation and foundation and rethinking about the delivery of education. And for many of our schools, we have had teachers have been doing both in-person classes, going home at night, and working with a remote learning for students who may not be able to attend in person because of COVID or health concerns. And so that really has accelerated the pressure and the amount of thinking through how to work individually in two different sites. Our teachers have done it joyfully, tearfully, and persistently. And one of the outcomes that we're seeing is just exhaustion and wondering how long they can manage that level of intensity in the classroom. And no, I have yet to hear of a teacher that would not want to do this. And so they press on. And so at this time of the year, when we're almost close to the end, notes of thank you, a huge thank you to our teachers, care for well-being and rest. This has been a year for school administrators, parents, teachers, all involved with education, that there was not a chance to renew last summer. And this is the time for rest, reflection, and renewal.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned persistence. We're still a little close to all of what's been happening to maybe see a lot of the benefits that have happened. But do you see benefits that may come from this persistence and all of the ingenuity that's had to happen over the last year to be able to do education in many different ways? Do you see some benefits from having to do some of these things?
I do. And from school ministry to districts to our schools to classrooms, there has been a great appreciation expressed to for our schools, for our teachers who are just working night and day to provide a Christ-centered education for children. Parents who have worked with the at-home packets or with class meetings with their children at home have a new appreciation for the work of teachers. And that's been a good benefit, to know that a cherished education, a Lutheran Christian education, is not being taken for granted when we experience this pandemic and what that could mean for the future of education.
So it being Teacher Appreciation Week, who are the teachers, who are the educators that inspired you to become an educator, Becky?
This is a great question, Andy, and I think back to the moment when a teacher encouraged me, and her name was Mrs. K. I was attending K-12 school, and I was in high school working as a teacher aide in a resource room situation. And one day she said to me, you should be a teacher. You're really good at this. And that stayed with me for years and years. At that time, I did not intend to be a teacher. But that comment came back over and over. And so when I think of that pivotal moment, it reminds me of how very important it is that we continue to encourage those we see who could be great teachers.
Mm-hmm. And appreciating our teachers this week. And as we near the end of the school year, what are some ways we can show appreciation for all of the teachers in our lives?
A heartfelt thank you is absolutely the most wonderful thing for teachers to hear. Appreciation, care for their well-being, all of these are very important. Recognizing that rest is needed, recognizing for the great things that have happened this year, and really our teachers have helped us transcend from the darkness of COVID over a year ago to seeing light at the end of the tunnel. And they've done an amazing job.
So a heartfelt thank you attached to a gift certificate would be even better, right?
It can, but really it isn't about the gift as much as the appreciation. But I'll tell you, a gift doesn't hurt.
Well, it is Teacher Appreciation Week. With just a minute here, I have to ask Sarah, who were the teachers who inspired you or who made a meaningful impact for you as well?
The list is very long. Mrs. Martin, my upper grades teacher in grade school, she inspired me in so many ways in those critical middle school years of life. Mrs. Ankerberg, my music teacher, Mr. Hoffman, Cantor Hoffman, who inspired the hymn nerd in me. That's a legacy. So many others that the list is very, very long. What about you, Andy?
For me, definitely my fifth grade teacher was awesome. Ms. Watland was amazing. I had great teachers all the way through school. And my music teachers certainly had Mrs. Fisher in elementary school, Miss Miller in middle school, and then Mrs. Ellington in high school. And they were all fantastic and encouraged me to continue to study music. And I'm grateful for that. That really has made a big impact on where and how I get to serve today, even at KFUO. And so many others, my speech teacher, Mrs. Coffey, and so many others who were just great. And today, I also have to say, I am so encouraged by my son's teachers. Last year, our kindergarten teacher, and Mrs. Landgraf, and this year, Mrs. Mueller, is first grade teacher, who have just done an amazing job. And I'm so thankful for them. They've been so encouraging to me and a great example of persistence. So I'm so thankful for them. Happy Teacher Appreciation Week. Thank you, teachers, for all that you're doing. And a few weeks left. Hang in there for those of you who get summer break very soon. Dr. Rebecca Schmidt, Director of LCMS School Ministry. Thanks so much for being our guest today.
Thank you.
You've been listening to The Coffee Hour. I'm Andy Bates.
I'm Sarah Gulseth.
The Coffee Hour with Andy and Sarah is a production of KFUO. To support the Coffee Hour and KFUO Radio, visit KFUO.org. You can also text KFUO to 41444 or send an email to gifts@kfuo.org. And you can call us at 800-844-0524. KFUO. Christ for you, anytime, anywhere.